Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. We are going to be going over the monk build that I created and ran in my first playthrough of Baldur's Gate 3 and ended up beating the campaign with. Now I ended up doing multiple playthroughs and a couple playthroughs with this monk, and this is the one that I like the most, and I figured it was pretty powerful and you get some pretty good combos with this monk build. So I'm going to be going over it. We are going to be choosing monk. You get the action flurry of blows, which is very handy, and this is very key to the build and our playstyle. You get unarmored defense. Your reflexes are as effective as any armor. While not wearing armor, you add your wisdom modifier to your armor class. Martial arts dexterous attacks with monk weapons, and unarmed attack scale with dexterity instead of your strength if your dexterity is higher. Martial Death Strikes. Attacks with monk weapons and unarmed strike deal additional 1 for bludgeoning damage unless your normal damage is higher. Then you also get a bonus unarmed strike with the monk, which is very handy. You actually end up hitting a lot with this build, and we'll go deeper into that. So with our ability scores, I have Strength 12 because I don't want to dump this too low. I dumped Intelligence, and I dumped Charisma as much as I can. With my skill proficiencies, I have Deception and Intimidation that you can check in here. So I have a +2 in these two. With my background, I have Acrobatics 5, and I have Insight 4, Sleight of Hand 5 as well. So we want 17 in dexterity. We want this to be super high because early on we're going to be using dexterity mostly for our damage, and then we want wisdom as high as we can for our armor class, and then constitution as high as possible as well to help with our stamina, physical endurance, and affects our hit points as well as our concentration. All right, now we're going into level 2 where we get an additional key point. We get unarmored movement. Your movement speed is increased by 10 feet while you are not wearing armor or using a shield. We also get patient defense. Attack rolls against you have disadvantage, and you have an advantage on dexterity saving throws. This is a bonus action, and it costs a key point. Step of the wind dash. Double your movement speed. Jump no longer requires a bonus action, which is really good. Also costs a bonus action and key points. Step of the wind disengage. Retreat to safety by disengaging. Jump no longer requires a bonus action. Bonus action for this and a key point as well. Keep in mind that we are limited on key points. That our key points is our monk level +1. Do keep in mind that I did go for an orc or half orc. The reason I did this is because savage attacks, when you land a critical hit with a melee weapon, your damage dice are tripled instead of doubled. I did this because I was running a dagger. That was my plan, but you can run with whatever you want to. Still really good because you get relentless endurance. If you reach 0 hit points, you get 1 instead of becoming downed for each long rest, which is actually really good. All right, we are going to be choosing Way of the Shadow. We get Shadow Arts Hide. Hide is a bonus action basically. Shadow Arts Pass Without a Trace. You get +10 to stealth bonus checks. Concentration, 2 key points. This is really good. Shadow Arts Darkness. This is very situational. Blinds and obscures enemies. We have nothing to combat this unless you have a warlock with Devil Sight. You can't see in magical darkness. So we do have an option that doesn't let us get blinded by one of our rings, but it's very hindrance if you don't use it situationally. So it depends on the usefulness of it. I really don't use this at all. I really haven't found any use for it. So this is actually nothing to me. Silence, I do actually use this a lot. The bad thing is it costs 2 key points and it's concentration. So it's very situational. If I need to silence some casters in a big area, then I go ahead and use that. We also get minor illusion that helps us with stealthing around and moving around. We actually have a lot of stealth on this build, and we'll get into that later too. All right, we're in level 4. We get an additional key point, and we get slow fall. When you fall, you can use a reaction to gain resistance to slow fall damage. We're going to go with our feats, and we're going to go with ability improvement. We're going to go dexterity and wisdom, and we're going to hit accept. Additional key points for level 5. We get an extra attack. Most martial classes do, which is really good. The really great thing about this is we get stunning strike, where we get it with melee or we get it unarmed. And this is actually really good when you need to take somebody out of combat for a full round, one turn. Say you got an enemy that's doing a lot of damage, or, you know, somebody that's like, you know, really, hey, I got to, you know, handle this guy. Go ahead and hit him with a stun. They're out for a turn, which is really good. We also get Cloak of Shadows. This is basically an invisibility. Entirely if you attack, cast another spell, take an action, or take damage. For level 6, we get an additional key point. We get improved unarmored movement. Your movement speed increases by 15 while you are not wearing armor or using a shield. We also get key empowered strikes. Your unarmed attacks count as magical for the purpose of overcoming enemies, resistances, and immunity to non-magical damage. We also get Shadow Step, which I originally thought was going to be really good. And it is, but it's more situational than use it majority of the time. It costs a bonus action and no key, which is amazing. But you have to have slightly obscure or fully obscure. And that is kind of the situational of it, because there's times to where there is just light everywhere and there's no shadows for you to, you know, teleport to, which is why we make use of the amazing movement of the monk. The thing about this is you don't take an opportunity attack, so you just teleport away and it's good. So if you use a disengage, you don't get an opportunity attack either. Level 7, we get an additional key point. We get evasion. This is actually really good for the monk. Your agility lets you dodge out of the way of certain spells. When a spell or effect would deal half damage on a successful dexterity saving throw, it deals no damage if you succeed and only half damage if you fail. And we have very high dexterity saving throws, so this is really good for us. It actually, a lot of people miss us, so we don't really take a whole bunch of damage at once. Silence of the Mind. If you are charmed, frightened, you automatically cast Silence of the Mind and remove the condition. I hardly ever see this come up. It's nice to have just in case, but it's not really that important. At level 8, we get another feat. So we are going to be boring and go for ability improvement, of course. A couple things you could go for is alert. You gain 5 bonus to initiative and can be surprised. This is actually really good for you, and because you normally want to start at the beginning of the turn, but we have a lot of initiative in our gear, so I'm not going to worry about this too much. You could get athlete to increase your dexterity by 1 to a maximum of 20, but that would only leave us at 19. A couple other things you could get is tough to have a superb amount of hit points. If you wanted to go strength, you could do this, but dexterity actually helps us out a whole lot with sneaking around and stuff like that. So we're going to go to our ability improvements, and then we're just going to bump this up to 20 and hit accept. All right, we're going at level 9. We get an additional key point, and then we get an advanced unarmed movement. Difficult terrain does not slow you down, and you can jump an additional 20 feet while you are not wearing armor or using a shield. No, we are not going level 10. You would get purity of body, immunity to poison, and improved unarmed movement again, but we are going to go this way, and we're going to go rogue. You get sneak attack for ranged and melee, which is fine if you are using a weapon. I am not, but there are some of the playthrough I did use weapon, and it was actually really good. Rogue level 2. This is partial. The reason that why we're using rogue is we can use dash and disengage as a bonus action and not take up our key. Our key is a very finite resource, and you don't want to be stuck in a battle with no key. That will completely, well, it won't completely ruin it, but it'll be kind of, you know, iffy. You still hit strong, you still hit a lot, but you really don't want to run out of key in the middle of a battle. So this is going to help you out with your mobility without having to waste the key. And this is the main reason that we are taking the thief, is for the bonus action fast hands. We don't care about the second story work because we already gain resistance to falling damage through the monk, but having 2 bonus actions is very good for the monk. 1 to hide, 1 to use our flurry of blows, or 1 to do a disengage or a dash. That way we have 1 open to use our flurry of blows or other things if needed. It really feels poor on other classes that don't have a second bonus action, in my opinion. I've grown very accustomed to this, and I miss it a lot when I don't have it in any other classes. But that is us at level 12. All right, so we have an armor class of 19 as a monk, which is actually really good. We're going to be going over our gear and some of the stuff we have over here. We did take illicit powers. I'll be going over that in a second whenever we, after we go over what gear I have right now. Our ability scores end up looking like this, and we end up having 13 in sleight of hand and 13 in stealth. And then if we take pass without a trace, that ends up giving us 23 to stealth. You can basically sneak into anything. It is very, very hard for anybody to detect you, which is really, really good and really great for setting yourself up for situations where you need to set up a battle right and, you know, get behind a mob or an enemy and deal damage that way. Sleight of hand is also 13, which is phenomenal. Our acrobatics is 9. Animal handling, we have that. Insight is very important, and our deception intimidation is +3, which is actually pretty good since we dumped our charisma. So this is our movement speed is 45 feet, dark vision 40 feet. I got this off of a boss fight. We're going to be gaining +2 to attack rolls and initiative rolls and perception checks. Cloak of displacement at the beginning of a wearer's turn. Cloak activates and grants enemies disadvantage on attack rolls that target the wearer. Now, all this gear is not mandatory. This is actually just stuff that I picked up randomly because I've actually spec'd in and out of this build trying different stuff real quick. So a lot of the best gear is I really don't have. So if you can find a lot better gear for this build. This is actually really important. Careful, this might be a spoiler for you guys. So this is a fight that you get doing Shadow Heart's quest line. So if you don't want to be spoiled on that, just skip ahead a little bit. But this chest piece is actually very good for stealth checks. Then you also get this on one of the bots in the game. Your unarmored attacks do 1d4 force damage, and you get high spell casting +1 to spell save DC. This boots you get in the Underdark, where you get Misty Step. This is also very important for your mobility, also costs a bonus action. Amulet of Unworthy, you gain resistance to slashing damage, but also grants invulnerability to bludgeoning damage. Ring of Truthfulness, you gain advantage on insight checks. And then blind immunity, where it cannot be blinded. This is actually very important, just in case you're in darkness or if you're, somebody tries to blind you. This is actually really good. And then Githyanki crossbow, any bow or high damage bow or high damage crossbow or anything like that. This part isn't really important because we're mainly going to be in melee, but in situations that you can't get up to an enemy, which is very rare, that helps to use this. I'm not even proficient in this, so it's just something that I really wanted to have just in case I need to hit somebody from far away. That's what I can do. That way I don't lose out on a turn or an action. All right, I'm going to be going over my illicit powers. I didn't take a whole bunch of these, but I took a few of them that is going to be very, very important. So if you don't want to be spoiled by this, you can go ahead and move to later on in the video. First of all, we're going to be taking favorable beginnings. Your first attack roll ability checks that you make against the enemy is gains a bonus equal to your proficiency, which is very strong. And this one, Luck of the Far Realms, is probably one of the most broken things in the game. When you successfully attack against a foe, you can change that into a critical hit. The good thing about this is this only once per long rest, but it is very handy, and whenever you hit a big crit, you really want to be able to use that. I have charm. Simple fact is that if somebody attacks me, you can charm them as a reaction, just in case, because this guy is still really squishy, even though we have a 19 armor class. You still don't want people to attack him very much. You'd rather them attack one of our other party members that we have over here, and we got built as a tank. With that, we also have transfuse health. We only took this one to come over here and get this one. This one is actually very, very strong. Perilous Stake invests a creature with power that heals it when it attacks, but also makes it vulnerable to all damage, lasts 3 turns. So it can potentially heal itself, but also makes it very vulnerable. So if you pop this on and then do a couple rounds of your flurry of blows, this is actually really, really strong. We can actually take out most regular enemies and does severe damage to bosses. Shield of Thralls is actually pretty good, and I'd probably come down here and do Cull the Weak. Whenever you bring a creature down to fewer hit points than your number of evolved illithid powers, it dies and all nearby enemies take 1d4 psychic damage. I actually didn't want to take the illithid powers at the beginning of this run, but I ended up breaking down and going for it because this Look of the Far Realms is just too strong. I did want to mention an alternative cape, which is the Shade Slayer cloak, which is actually pretty good. Stealth critical while hiding. The number of rolls you need to make a critical hit while attacking is reduced by 1. This effect can stack. So this is actually really strong, but I also like the opportunities that the other cloak gives us too. Thank you guys so much for choosing to watch the video. If you like the content, please go ahead and leave a like, subscribe, and comment down below what you guys think of the build or some things that you might have done differently. And until next time, T-Bone out.